Hello, D&Ders, RPGers, gamers, and the like. Uh, Today, I'm going to start talking about White Star. I think I spent a little time talking about White Box as a big focus in Swords and Wizardry and gaming. In this series, I'm going to be talking about White Star. So it's a digest size little book. It's kind of small, right? It's by James Spahn. He actually came out with it. It's based on the concept of playing White Box and applying it to space. Now, I've tried Stars Without Number, first edition. I didn't really get to play second edition with my group. They actually didn't care for it. I don't understand why they didn't like it, but they were kind of like, they wanted to do sci-fi, but they weren't really interested in maybe the complexity of the game. It took too much research for them. I don't know. It was too different than D&D. I have no idea why I did not grab them. So my wife in particular really loves sci-fi, and I went ahead and purchased White Star through DriveThruRPG, and for 127 pages, and I say 127, but they do have a module in the back that I ran people through it. It opened up an entire world to them. So this super fun book, and I'll talk about the companion. I do not have the Galaxy. I thought the Galaxy was more expensive, but for what I needed to do, this was going to be fine. Okay, and I'll explain several things in other videos. What do I have on my website that maybe you might want to use for your gaming group, because I don't think I'm really violating like copyright stuff for you to actually get. Another thing I got was Graveyard Atlas. I just started reading this and kind of going through it. Haven't used it yet. I started creating my own graveyard called the Glaxon Riff to game with, right? So before I talk about what I change in the game, I would like to show you what it states in the game. So we're going to go through that first. I'm going to go through the first 27 pages of White Star, and then I will, in the subsequent video after this, explain, what I changed. It's truly based on what the thing looked like for Roll20. A lot of people use Roll20 or Virtual Tabletop. I used Roll20, and because of the way the character sheet's set up, I ended up changing a few things. Now, so without further ado, let me kind of go through what White Star, White Box science fiction role-playing states. Okay, first of all, don't go on eBay and try to buy one of these things or something, because eBay had one like for 150 bucks out of Canada or something. It's a crazy thing. You get through DriveThruRPG for like 10, 15 bucks or something. So make sure they're, oh my God, there's only one left. No, just they print on demand kind of thing, right? So James Spahn, he came out with this, and his position in gaming just so jealous with me. It's Barrel Rider Games. This came out in 2015, so it's 5 years old. Okay, I don't think there's enough on it out there. When I try to search for stuff online, I mean, people just review it, but they don't really kind of show kind of gameplay or see where you can take this thing. Hopefully through my series of videos, you can see where this can take you. All right. So it makes it super fun for playing something like this, okay? It's your typical setup as far as attributes. I'm gonna go through all these things because if you do get the book, which I highly suggest for the cost, it's totally worth it. It explains what exactly the archetypes are, right? So it's designed to capture the fast and free halcyon days of interstellar adventure using Swords and Wizardry White Box. Okay, which when you say Swords and Wizardry White Box, we're just talking a D20 and a D6 for pretty much all your actions, right? And so you have something called the Star Knights, which are supposed to be, quote unquote, the Jedi Knights. But they can't say that. They don't want to get sued. So we don't say that, right? So they call them Star Knights. Then you have pilots, which I guess in this case would be someone like Han Solo. And then you have robots, C-3PO. You get the idea. So the idea behind it is they got these archetypes that you know in the Star Wars universe kind of thrown into their thing, right? And it's a lot of fun. So the rules of White Star is based around White Box, okay? It's meant to be guidelines, and therefore I've changed mine. You can do what you want. And the reason why I changed mine is I do a bunch of statistical probability things, and I came up with the reason why I put it that way, right? And it's a lot more fun like that. There's actually, they said Flash Gordon conquers the universe. Now, Flash Gordon, if you like the movie with Queen soundtrack, oh, it's a great movie. You can see where this would sort of fit in. John Carter of Mars, if you've seen that movie, it was a lot of fun. I mean, these are things you could do so much with this, and it's only limited by the creativity of the game master or the space master, whatever you want to call yourself when you play this thing, right? So the fun thing about it is, like, you designate a referee. If you're watching this, you're probably going to be the one that is the referee. And it's a great game to start off with if you're going to referee, because if you wanted to just see whether people like it or not, they put together this dandy little module in the back, and I can scroll down and show it to you, but it's the last, say 30 pages or so in the back of the book. It's a great adventure, and it's got one little map laid out, and it's basically an asteroid base, and you go in and try to figure out what's happened and pull some data tapes. And I played this with a group of students, chemistry students, after we finished the AP chemistry exam. I played it with philosophy, actually it was astronomy students. They played it, they loved it. And then I played it from actually my adult group, and when I played my adult group, it catapulted into a whole campaign that's still ongoing. We started all in roll 20 because, well, we're in the middle of a quarantine. And so we started playing roll 20. It was kind of interesting because the character sheet's so small and easy to get along with. It's not cumbersome, hard to find stuff, that everyone just kind of got into it and started going. So we'll talk more about that in a different video, right? So let's just talk about how the character builds are, right? I like this guy. He's kind of got like almost like a mullet here. I don't know. I think there's one thing that's the cover. I'm not really. I think the ship looks cool. I think the subsequent colors on the other ones, I think are a little cooler looking. Like the cover of this one, I think is really kind of cool because just the eye is a planet in this. For some reason, this one kind of looks 80s looking. I don't know, like the guy's haircut kind of like whatever. I mean, it would have been cooler maybe if a robot or look at the face or something. I would have kind of, whatever, So it's pretty easy. Start the game. You have a referee, strength-based attribute scoring. So number one rule, referee has the right to modify the rules. It's encouraged. See, I like Spahn. He just read out the bet. You're the one playing the game. How would you want to play your game? Which is kind of cool, right? And unlike the other games that you might have is a bunch of RAWs, which is rules as written scenarios. This one right here, you kind of get it and kind of modify and go with it. My advice, and I'll show you a bunch of the stuff I've done, is that if I write it out and explain it, like if we're doing it in a group and eventually I write it out and present it to my group, it becomes our rules as written. And I refer back to it on my web pages for people to see. And I think people are pretty much agreeable. It's kind of created around that concept. All right. This is your game after all. I like the way he writes. It gets me pumped for action. So like I said, they have a bunch of, it's your typical 7 dice that you would use in playing any kind of game like Dungeons and Dragons, but the ones that are going to be most useful to the group, if you're going to play this live, is just a D6 and a D12. In fact, D6 and D20, not D12. I buy a whole bunch of extra D20s and a bunch of extra D6s. In fact, I get the really, really big ones. They're like, 28 millimeters or 32 millimeter. So if we play at a table, no one even has to bring dice. Or if someone wants to try for the first time, they don't have to make any purchases. They're just rolling dice and enjoying it. It makes it so much easier for gameplay, and the immersion is deeper. And so that's kind of important. That's one thing that I found with Stars Without Number, because it's a newer or a different system. Many of the people spend too much time cruising your character sheet. You don't memorize your stats and see what's going on. You want people to impulsively kind of like, I know my strength is a 12. I got to roll this, or I got to add 2 to this roll, or whatever it is. The idea behind it is when people kind of feel like they know where they are with their roles, the games move so much easier, and I find that people are more into the role playing without being hindered. That's just me. Okay, so then you have your stats. So it's strength, intelligence, wisdom, constitution, dexterity, and charisma, the typical ones that we all knew, right? I make them 3d6. I do follow this straight down, okay? And from there, those are going to be your attributes, right? And you'll understand why. And they give you a breakdown straight out. Strength allows character to carry more items, depending on the house rules being used. Gives bonuses to attack and damage, handheld weapons. Prime attribute of the mercenary, right? So you have a mercenary class, and strength is his ability. So this guy talks about 3d6 times 6. One option is that, and they arrange it to taste. That works. That's how I kind of do it. I figured I let them move things around to find the class that they want. Some people like to roll 4d6 and you drop the lowest one. I've done that numerous times. I actually tried one time. It's something really fun to try. Is that everyone gets 12 to start with, and they roll 6. Six-sided dice. 3 are going to be counted up. 3 are going to be counted down. So they roll 1. That'll be your up one. Roll 1. That's a down one. So the lowest score they would get was like the lowest score they would get would be like a 6. Highest score they would get would be like an 18 if they're lucky. That would like work really kind of nice too, because you know you could still almost get like you always are going to have 3 that are going to give you a bonus, because the bonuses start at 13 in this game. So you're always going to get 3 bonuses, and some of the ones that if you roll a 6-sided dice and you're going to subtract it from 12, you can roll a 1. That means you got an 11. You're not going to get a negative. So it hedges the bet on the characters going to get bonuses. We can look at that, but that's another way you can roll up these characters, right? So let's look at this thing. So the mercenaries, alien brutes, use strength bonus to modify their 2 hit number. And you might say, well, everybody gets it, right? And the other one is mercenary. Everybody uses strength bonus to modify their damage when using handheld melee weapons. Okay, that kind of they're sort of the fighter class is mercenary, as you would know in White Box, right? So intelligence is your IQ and your reasoning, and so the people that you would put underneath this thing would be the alien mystics. I do not use alien mystics in my game. I know it sounds kind of weird, is that I kind of keep it pretty focused with the Jedi as being, not the Jedi, the Star Knights, sorry, let's not say this wrong. The Jedi having all the mystical abilities, and pretty much everybody is going to be either a pilot, a mercenary, or robot class is fine. We haven't even used alien brute. I kind of kept that out. I mean, that would be something like a Wookiee, you know what I'm saying? We kind of left that guy out. And the companion book, they have a whole lot more that you could pick. I mean, I think someone picked one of those survivalist ones and stuff. And like I said, it depends on the campaign you want to write. Two-fisted technician's a great thing. Plucky sidekick. They have a whole bunch of them, and we can flip through it and just kind of scroll through and deep space explore. There's a bunch of different classes. Depends on the type of game you're going to play, whether or not these are very functional. Last thing you want to do is have somebody pick a character, and you don't really get them enough that their character traits help them. So then they kind of feel like I picked a worthless character. So that's why I kind of limit the characters they pick, because I want to make sure that when I'm writing the storyline or the campaign itself, that these people get a certain amount of play and no one feels like they're useless and they don't do anything. So that's something to take into consideration when you're putting groups together. I played online with somebody on Roll20 as a player, just to see how someone else would play White Star, and he did the same thing. He kind of made sure that everyone was like either a mercenary pilot. It did not, I think it was an alien space setting, and so there was no Jedi or Star Knight, sorry. You couldn't pick a robot, but the two-fisted technician was able to grab a droid and say a drone. So there's ways you could play this, which is quite fun. So the next group, which is our next attribute, wisdom, is the focus of a Star Knight character. So 13 or higher. All these things, if you're 13 higher in your prime requisite, you get bonus for your experience points. This also has a factor on when you're playing this thing. Wisdom bonuses later on in the companion guide. They do have skill sets where you can approach this right here. So even though the books are small, it seems like you can make them as complex as you want, which is kind of interesting, right? So they have these things called meditations, and wisdom bonus can be used for meditation. This is really kind of cool. Spahn boxes these things out and calls them house rules. Really nice. He does it for each one of these things. If you noticed, like there's one house rule for intelligence for alien gifts. Obviously, he has this thing for combat, strength for combat. Like I just, make it for all things. Just a fun way of doing it. Constitution, basically. I do this thing, and I highly suggest if you're going to play this with a group, and if you want to start people off at first level, which I do, I always suggest first level. Some people say, I'll just start off at third level. That's what Gary Gygax did, because the death rate's pretty bad at first level. I just add your Constitution points to your full hit points at first level. So let's say the person rolls a 10 for Constitution, and you say you get 1 hit dice at first level for the pilot. Okay, so 1 hit dice for the pilot would be, it's a 6-sided dice, so it's just 6. And I add the Constitution. If he rolled a 12 to begin with, a 10 to begin with, he's got a 16 hit points walking in. It just works out so much better. That it gives the players more flexibility. Let them get punched maybe 3-4 times before you're out, so they can gauge, hey, wow, I got to back off this thing. Like I said, it keeps them from being so tender that you really can't. You won't engage into a thing. That's something to think about. So the next thing is dexterity. that's a pilot class thing. That's basically looking at when you're using stuff like missile weapons, you know, laser guns, stuff like that. Dexterity is going to be your prime attribute for using that. If you get to a certain height, you get basically experience points added to that. And this right here, I always do that with the armor class. I think that's really important. So higher dexterity, lower your armor class. I do this for everybody, right? So this is something you got to think about. The charisma prime attribute is going to be for the aristocrat. Aristocrats are the ones that basically are the sharp tongue speakers. And basically, I consider them almost like I almost like hypnotists practically. They're able to talk their way in and out. I'm sure you have a friend like that somewhere. And so they also, the charisma is going to be used for determining how many assistants you can have and their loyalty. These things all play a factor. So these are your archetypes right here, right? So it's pretty straightforward. And then they give you a small little universal bonus table. So between 3 and 6, it's -1. 7 to 14 is your range, and 15 to 18 is +1. Some people, like I said, start this thing really changes. Some people go 13 on up as a +1, and they have this thing, the range for below average. I think it's about the same, but they make it like 9 to 13 is their average range. But the below average is pretty much, you know, real low, I guess, in a sense. Like I said, you do what you feel works best for your people you're playing with. It talks a little bit about these guys. The Alien Brute, Alien Mystic Robot do not provide a class-based experience bonus. And I think these things are something to take into consideration. These 3 classes, I keep these. I only limit the thing to like 1 robot. I think we have 1 robot in our group, and they're super special, but everyone else is one of the other classes. Makes it sort of interesting. Then you could like determine who gets money. You could put them on assignment to begin with. And here's your character classes. I'm going to go through this really quick, okay? And it's straightforward. You have your level, experience points, base to hit bonus. Basically, it's on all attack rolls. Hit dice, right? That determines everything's on dice 6 because it's a white box / white star translation. Then you get your saving throws, and obviously you get a saving throw bonus if it should happen for your class. So there's your aristocrat, right? Senators, planetary nobles, military officers, anybody in that group when it comes to leading, consider aristocrats, right? And when you're looking at all this stuff, they get 1 hit dice, base hit bonus is 0, and your saving throw is 14. Once you get to 2nd level after experience points, they get 1 hit dice plus 1 hit point. That's what I'm saying. If you add your constitution to it, these guys tend to hang around a little longer, right? So being 2nd level, you could actually only have 7 hit points, or if you get a constitution potion, maybe 8 2nd level. So I try to give them, let's say, if they have 10 constitution plus 1, it would make it obviously 16. This would make them 17 hit points at 2nd level. They could take several blasts before going down. And it talks about their restrictions, which are pretty straightforward. These guys are not mercenaries, right? And they can only have, I think, light armor is what they have right there. And this is their spills. And one of them is a Silvertongue. This is where he's able to BS his way out of things, right? It's like a charm person, right? That you would know in normal D&D, which is kind of cool, right? And I think it's such an interesting concept of this guy. This is his main attribute. He can talk his way in and out. And this is very, very important in playing this game because you're dealing with mostly humans. They're trying to say, why are you here? Especially for a bunch of smugglers. They got to do the talking and move through it. After he gets to a certain level, he's able to pick up a mercenary that's going to help him in fighting, and other humans that act as servants and advisors, and they can eventually be a ruler. Like, we haven't gotten to this level yet that we're going to use that. Mercenary is your typical fighter. They start up beefier than the rest, right? 1 plus 1, so that maximum you're going to have here is 7 hit points. That's why I add the constitution to it. Next one you're rolling 2, you see the idea. They get increases all the way up as far as when it comes to base hit for fighting, right? They do get, let's keep rolling down here, right? They basically use any weapon. They're a combat machine. They get a +2 saving throw against death and poison. And with a strength of 13 or 14, receive this thing. At 15, they get an extra 10%. I kind of like let everyone level at the same time. It's just what I do. You do what you like, right? Once more they get a certain thing, they become like a stronghold mercenary. The pilot, he's going to be the one that's going to be able to fix things and fly things and do stuff that needs to be done, especially when you're doing interstellar travel. Once again, he doesn't get his base to hit bonus until he gets to 3rd level, where the mercenary just starts right off. So he increases very slowly, 1-1, then it goes 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5. Yeah, but if you go back up to the mercenary, it's everything is just a climb up until about 6th level. You get a +6 in all your hits. So it depends on what class you're going to play with that one. But obviously, pilots are extremely useful because those guys are the ones that hack everything. Especially in my book, they're the ones always opening electronic doors, doing everything. That's a lot of their checks. In fact, pilots suggest them having a high intelligence as well as a high dexterity for things they're going to need to do. They're also the ones that fix everything, right? And this is cool attributes. +2 for initiative in starship combat. I do my combat a little differently, but I'll look at what it says in the book on a different thing. And basically, it's a thing called space age during a space combat round. It gets a +1 to the starship's one of starship stats: armor class, movement, shield, and targeting. I took their space stuff. I looked at Swords Stars Without Number, 2nd edition, and I came up with my own version of play involving the entire crew. The problem with some of these games, which you get into a ship setting, that everyone's sitting on their hands and only one person's rolling dice, I modified this quite a bit to a much more group-infused activity, and I kind of like it. It kind of makes sense. So we can look at that, and it'll be in a separate video. He also has the ability to jury-rig. That's where the pilot may attempt a quick fix on a starship. And this is kind of cool. They actually quick fix robots, especially. Like if you find a dilapidated robot and you need to send it out to get shot at as a diversion, this is something that people, they come up with their own creative thing. You say, yeah, sounds cool. And they put a robot together and it's a junked robot. It goes out and starts shooting, and then it gets shot up, and then you're able to escape out the back way. I don't know why that's such a fun thing for a group to come up with. And obviously, he gets a +2 on saving throw against explosions and environmental hazards. He becomes a captain, and then everything else is determined by the referee. Here's your Star Knight. Great picture of a guy. All Star Knights don't have shirts on, I guess. I don't know. It works along the way. I like that. Not the Force, no. The way. I love it. This guy's hysterical. Spahn. Anyways, look at the way he does. He gets he accelerates kind of like the pilot as far as his base hit bonuses, but he does get that special ability. His experience point climbs a little harder than the rest of them, right? But he gets these spells. Now, I say spells. There really are how would you say what was that thing called? Meditations. That's what it was called. So I augment this a little bit. I give them their 1st level meditation automatically. There's one that's for healing themselves. So they get that one. That makes them super special. So there's some kind of, how would you say, incentive. If you take that class, you get the ability to 1d6 once a day, put back hit points. Because they don't get the heavy armor. They don't get stuff like that. And they're going to get chopped up. And they're based with a laser sword. I also augment these guys a little bit. In my play, I don't let them they can use a star sword and a crossbow, of all weird things, or a bow. That's all they get to use. They're, how would you say, of mystical religion, or they have to be pretty much one with their weapon, using a sword, kind of like a ninja kind of warrior, or using a crossbow, or how would you say, a bow. Pretty much limits their ability to do things, because I think they would become overpowered pretty quickly if they're using, how would you say, guns and whatever. So I just kind of made them like that. Everyone seemed to agree with it because they thought it was kind of smart. He gets a +1 to all his hits when using the Star Sword. So he really doesn't want to just use that. But I kind of have him the ability to like shoot an arrow, which was kind of a weird thing, like an old. I made it big religious reason why they use the arrow. It's still they're one with the wood and all this. I made this thing up, but it's kind of fun. They get a +2 saving throw against anything tourism meditation gives, and this has to do with the Void Knights, who are the bad guys. Very fun, and they get to establish a monastery. So I think it'll. And here's the other guys, the alien brutes. Like I said, we don't really go into this character much. We haven't used it. As you can see, he does his climb. He's a little bigger, a little stronger. They stop at 6th level, right? I guess that would be if you're going to have a Wookiee, you're going to have a guy that can do stuff. Talks about what it can do, right? It does unarmed combat, does its own damage. And obviously it kind of has and interact with the mercenary. Alien Mystic, obviously you see this one. Like I said, this was not one that we've used. If it works for your campaign, great. His climb's a little less than, let's say, the Alien Brute, and he doesn't even get a spell. That's probably why people don't, oh, forget this. Didn't even get something at first level. So I probably really want to use the Alien Mystic. I'd have to give him one at first level. It's kind of hard not to have one. And then the robot class. Now we do have robot class, and this is a fun one to play. Saving throw is like really, really low, which was sort of interesting. And I let them to pick out what kind of one they would want. I've have, how would you say, they get a metal body as far as like ability of increased armor class, and mechanical engineer and understanding, which makes them really, really fun for interacting with things, right? So they get to choose what they want. This is actually a fun class to have. They can't get past 4th level, but one is, it can be a combat droid, which is super fun, diplomacy droid, or a mechanical droid. I think my son, he's playing a mechanical droid in one of the campaigns I'm running. And my wife, she is a combat droid, but she's also kind of like a mix between the two. She's also got something else. Like I said, when you're playing white box, you could change it to what works for you and your group. Everybody's okay with it, that's fine. She has a lot of roles because of the sheer fact of her stats. And it's a fun, I'll show like in another video what her stats look like. And you get an idea of what works and what works for the other characters, and people are pretty much have a lot of fun with it. Like here, these guys basically have dark vision order. They can scan out to 60 feet. They can see through complete dark. They self-repair, 1d6 plus 1 hit points. That's the reason why I really kind of thought that the Star Knight should have this ability too, because there's only going to be 2 characters that can regenerate on their own. The other ones, they got to find some kind of healing. So it's kind of interesting. And eventually you get to the point you do character retirement, and that's up to you. Well, I'm going to stop this video here. I'm not going to really go into the equipment thing here, but I'm going to give you an idea of what this is like. And then I'm going to actually jump into what the sheet kind of looks like for roll 20, but also explain how I changed a little bit about how they do the stats. Okay. So thank you for listening, and hopefully you find this interesting. If you've ever been interested in the game White Star, whether it's something you want to play or your group will be interested in, this is going to help you, kind of wrap your head around what you can do with the game. Like I said, it's a lot of flexibility, and I encourage you to kind of make it yours. Encourage you, if you want, you can use the stuff that I'm going to be showing you coming up in my other web pages, because it's out there. You can grab it, say, I really like this. Just print it out and keep it and give it to your group to game with or something like that. That's fun too. All right. So I'm going to let you guys go. I appreciate your time, and you have an excellent day.